She was in the Gulf when it started. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE. Three countries in 48 hours. No advance notice, no press release. A surprise mission to secure Italy's energy future. And back in Rome, Matteo Salvini was moving. He had been waiting for exactly this moment. Not days, not weeks, 3 years. This is the story of the man who wants Meloni's power and what he did the moment she turned her back. October 2022. Giorgia Meloni formed a government. 3 parties, 1 coalition. She took control from day one. Her party, Brothers of Italy, had won more than 25% of the vote. She was the dominant force, everyone knew it. Salvini knew it better than anyone. He had owned the Interior Ministry before. Law and order, immigration crackdowns, border closures. That ministry was his political identity. It was the office that made him the most feared man in Italian politics. Meloni gave it to someone else. She appointed Matteo Piantedosi, a non-partisan technocrat, not Salvini's man, not Salvini's choice. Salvini got transport, roads, bridges, infrastructure. He accepted, he smiled, he waited. Because Matteo Salvini has done this before, and he knows that in Italian coalition politics, patience is the most dangerous weapon. Fast forward to March 22nd, 2026. Italy voted, the referendum. Meloni's flagship judicial reform, the Nordio reform, was on the ballot. It would have separated the career paths of judges and prosecutors. It would have changed Italy's constitution. It was the centrepiece of her government's legacy. 53.7% said no. Not a close result, not a narrow defeat, a clear rejection by the Italian people of Meloni's most important reform. Turnout was nearly 59%, the highest for a constitutional referendum in over 2 decades. Italians came out specifically to vote against her. Political analysts were immediate. This was not just a vote on judicial reform, this was a vote on Meloni herself. She went on X that night. She called it a lost opportunity to modernise Italy. She said she would not resign. She said her commitment was unchanged. But the damage was done. 3 officials resigned within 48 hours. The coalition was shaking. Meloni's image as unbeatable, the image she had built since 2022, was cracked for the first time. And then came the energy crisis. The US-Israeli war on Iran had been running for weeks. Iranian attacks had damaged Qatar's LNG infrastructure. The Strait of Hormuz was partially closed. Energy prices in Italy were surging. Diesel hit €2.50 per litre. Petrol climbed to 2.05. Fuel restrictions were imposed at Milan, Venice, Bologna and Treviso airports. Italy was facing an energy emergency, and Meloni had no choice. She had to move fast. On April 3rd, she boarded a plane, unannounced, no diplomatic warning. She flew to Jeddah to meet Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, then to Doha to meet the Qatari Emir, then to Abu Dhabi to meet the UAE President, first European leader to visit the Gulf since the war began. She was gone for 48 hours, managing the crisis, protecting Italy's energy supply, fighting for the national interest abroad. And Salvini had already moved, not while Meloni was in the Gulf, before the referendum. On March 14th, when the polls were already turning against her, when the cracks were beginning to show, he stepped to the microphone and called for Italy to reopen energy ties with Russia. Not quietly, not through back channels, publicly, on the record. A direct challenge to the foreign policy line Meloni had spent 3 years building. A direct challenge to Italy's position within the European alliance. The United States made a pragmatic choice on Russian oil sanctions, Salvini said. Italy and Europe should make the same pragmatic choice. Brothers of Italy rejected it the same day. Forza Italia distanced itself within hours. But the words were already out there, already in the headlines, already forcing a response from Meloni's team, 1 week before the referendum vote that would crack her image for the first time. Why Russia? Why now? Why public? Because Salvini is not stupid. He is one of the most experienced political operators in Italy. He knows exactly what he is doing. A weakened leader cannot fight on two fronts. Meloni was already managing the referendum fallout, already managing an energy emergency, already managing a coalition that was showing its first real cracks. And Salvini added a third front. Then came Piantedosi, Meloni's interior minister, the man who had taken Salvini's old office, the office Salvini had never stopped thinking about, suddenly came under pressure. A private relationship became public. Journalist Claudia Conte broke the story. A personal scandal in the middle of a political crisis. Palazzo Chigi scrambled. The coalition held an emergency dinner. Meloni, Salvini, Tajani, all three deputy leaders at the table, behind closed doors, after midnight. And the next morning, Salvini sent Piantedosi an Easter dove. A public gesture, filmed, distributed, deliberate. "I am here," the gesture said. "I am loyal. I am watching. And if Piantedosi falls, I know which office becomes available." It is not accidental. None of this is accidental. Look at the sequence. The referendum defeat on March 23rd, Salvini's Russia statement on March 14th, before the vote, when polls were already turning. The Piantedosi scandal breaking in early April. The Gulf trip forcing Meloni out of Rome at the exact moment the coalition was most fragile. And the Easter dove, timed perfectly for the cameras. 3 years of patience, 3 weeks of cracks, one move after another. He has done this before. In 2019, Salvini was Deputy Prime Minister and Interior Minister. He was at the peak of his popularity. Polls showed Lega at 34%. He saw an opportunity. He pulled his own coalition apart. He triggered a government crisis in the middle of August. He calculated he would force early elections and win. He miscalculated. He lost everything. The coalition reformed without him. He went from Interior Minister to opposition benches in weeks. It was the worst political mistake of his career. And he has spent every day since learning from it. He does not move dramatically now. He does not flip tables. He does not pull the coalition apart. He pushes, quietly, deliberately. He tests the pressure points. He makes statements that force responses. He sends gestures that remind everyone he is still there. He positions himself so that if Meloni weakens further, he is already standing in the right place. Because that is how Italian coalitions die. Not in dramatic collapses, not in midnight rebellions. In slow pressure, in quiet positioning, in 100 small moves that nobody notices until suddenly the map of power has completely changed. Italy votes in 2027, less than 18 months from now. Meloni wants to make history. She wants to become the longest-serving Prime Minister in the history of the Italian Republic. She has said so publicly. She needs to survive until September 2027 to beat the record. Salvini knows the number. He knows the timeline. And he knows that 18 months is a long time in Italian politics. The question inside the coalition today is no longer whether Meloni will lead them into the 2027 election. It is whether Salvini will let her. She faces Parliament today. The speech was supposed to be about domestic policy, about Italy's recovery programme, about the agenda for the next year. Now it is about energy, war, coalition survival, and whether her government can hold together under the weight of everything that has happened in the last 3 weeks. Salvini will be watching from the front row. In October 2022, he accepted the Transport Ministry and said nothing. In March 2026, one referendum changed the calculation. In April 2026, while Meloni was in the Gulf securing Italy's energy future, he made his move. The Russia statement, the Easter dove, the Interior Ministry pressure, the coalition dinner that lasted past midnight. None of it is coincidence. All of it is strategy. The man who has been patient since 2022 is finally moving. And the record room has been watching every step. Subscribe to the Record Room because the next file is already open.